Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Enzo Masia, and I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining me. To those who are watching the channel for the very first time, thank you. You're most welcome. And those who are coming back again for another installment of one of our topics, thank you so much for your loyalty and continued support. I really, really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel so that we can continue to grow. And I hope that you will be blessed by what we're talking about today. Today, I'm talking about a very sensitive topic, which is nuanced in many churches. However, it's not something that is openly discussed. For the most part, it's just how you see the posture of the church insofar as members of the LGBTQIA plus are concerned, and their actions in this regard speaking louder than their actual words. And today I'm talking about, members of the LGBTQIA plus, being overlooked for leadership positions in the church, which is something that, I also have encountered in my own journey personally, which I will relate to you in this video. I am my first introduction to, ministry leadership was in high school actually. um, I think from grade 11, 12, when I joined a charismatic church, and I served in the worship team. And soon enough, I started leading worship in that church. And I never experienced any issues with, that church leadership from, um, um, an interaction perspective and the way I was received. They were focused on my gifts and talents and what I could give to the church in that regard. And it was never an issue. Even when I went to varsity and I served in campus ministry, I was part of the leadership in campus ministry, and I, as well as actively participated and served in the worship team. And my sexuality was never an issue at any given point in time. Although in certain spaces you do experience a certain energy that gives you a sense that that particular person is homophobic. However, because of the environment, they don't necessarily have the latitude to be able to express how they truly feel about you. But in certain ways, in how they speak, in how they relate to you, you're able to see that this person is homophobic towards me, because homophobia is not always you know um, articulated in the manner in which we expect. That someone will do a hate crime, or they'll outright point it out that you are gay and therefore you shouldn't be in this space. But you see it nuanced. You see how people treat you. You see how they relate to you. You see how they speak to you, and you see how they approach you. And in particular, I think in campus ministry, my encounter with such a nuance was when the pastor was speaking, and he was saying words like no sissies are allowed here, or this is not for sissies, or the gospel is not for sissies, making comments like that. And the person is looking at you and making such comments. And I think that's when I got a sense that this man is trying to say something more to me, but because the environment does not necessarily allow for that, he can't exactly say it outright, to say, I see something in you that I do not like, but I just cannot outright say it. And so that was the only instance where I sort of experienced some weird energy from spiritual oversight. I think moving on to being back home and in a new church, I served my local church when I was back home post varsity. And I literally I served a lot, to the point that I volunteered to just be all in. in that church when I was not employed. I knew that at some point, opportunities would come and God would open doors for me to be able to find employment. But in the meantime, when I was waiting, I devoted my time and efforts, to full time ministry, because of my gifts and talents and what I was able to offer to the church. I assisted, in church ministry in terms of administration, and leading, heading up certain departments within that church in particular. And it was an incredible experience. I never felt any energy, that was against me from the pastors. However, you can always, see when you are appointed into a certain leadership position, that the leaders within the church react a certain way. So they will buy into you because the pastors are endorsing you. And I think that's typical in any sort of leadership, sort of, setup, church leadership setup, regardless of your sexuality. But I think for me, it was even more nuanced because obviously people, had questions. There were probably whispers, around my sexuality, but they couldn't necessarily fight against me. They couldn't necessarily, come against me because of the work that I was doing, in the church, and how, I was helping advance, the work of God, because at some point I was lecturing in Bible school as well during my time, of serving, in that period. And it was an incredible experience for me, I have to say. When I was lecturing Bible school, it was great, to be able to just teach people, teach pastors, teach women of God about the Word and the Scriptures and the theology, of God, and helping them understand all of that. It was quite an interesting time in my life, and in that environment, it wasn't necessarily something I noticed. I didn't notice any hint of homophobia. The students were all, open, to what I was teaching them, and they were very much open to the work that I was doing, at the time. And so, um, fast forward, in Joburg. I moved to Joburg years later from Bumalanga, and got here, got into a new church. I was very excited to be, part of the church, auditioned to be part of the worship team, and they liked me, they liked my voice and liked my heart, most importantly, and they were excited for me to, join and serve. And I served for about, I think, 3 years, having been a member of the church, and I'd never at any given point in time, experienced any contentions around my sexuality, around, who I am. The only focus has always been, just my gifts and being able to serve God's people through my gifts, until there was a change of leadership, in the church. And as a result, our worship pastor that we knew, resigned, and a new worship pastor came on board. And she started getting to know everyone, and having one-on-ones with the team. And there were certain whispers, I guess, around my sexuality. And she was asking around and asking people regarding my sexuality. And because some people would give me feedback to say that she's been, asking them, regarding me and who I am, etc., etc. And eventually she basically connected with me, under the guise of getting to know me, when what she really wanted to know was, are you gay? And she did a whole, you know, dilly dallying around, oh, I'm just trying to get to know you better. And, as you know, I'm trying to get to know the team better. So tell me about your life, tell me about your childhood, your family, when eventually she got to, so who are you dating? Are you dating at all? Who are you? How do you, identify? And eventually I got to the point where I tell her that I'm gay. And immediately when I told her that I'm gay, she asked me to step down from the worship team, as she speaks to the pastors regarding the fact that I'm gay and I'm serving in the worship team. And I was really like hurt by that. I was really, disappointed that the new pastors could have someone on board that is serving in that capacity in the church with that kind of attitude, with that kind of outlook, and with that kind of energy that she's bringing into the space. And I was really hurt. It really took me back, um, because when somebody does that, especially in the Christian context, in where you thinking this is my safe space, I'm in the house of God, I'm in a space where I can safely worship, and then somebody within the church comes at you like that. Um, it is shocking, it is intimidating. It just makes the entire space feel like it's no longer safe. I remember like there were small things that she would do, every time she came on board. If I'm scheduled to lead a song, or if I'm scheduled to be in a song with someone else, she would come on board and quickly change that, and remove me from set lists and all of that. And I didn't understand it at the time, because for me, in a worship setup, if we're worshiping and you are leading worship and you feel that certain people can do the song better, I'm happy for you to chop and change as you please. But I just started noticing a pattern, how she was doing that. And she was doing, such changes like at the last minute. When you've spent time preparing and getting yourself mentally ready that you're going to be leading a song, and then at the last minute that is changed. And I said to myself, I'm not going to fight. I even, I sense the Holy Spirit saying to me that do not fight, do not argue, just accept, this decision, and just let it be, and in my conversations with her, when we started having further one-on-ones after she had asked me to sit down, she would say things like, the church has a certain standard. She would say things like, people are whispering, people are talking, and uh, because of that standard, people need to be submitted to a leadership. And I was thinking, what is this woman talking about? Like, so basically, I'm being asked to sit down from the worship team because people are whispering, and people are talking, and who she didn't even mention who these people were. She didn't even mention, you know, um, what she meant by we're submitted to a leadership. Because when she said that, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so are you saying the new leadership is asking you to get rid of me because they do not like the fact that I'm gay and I'm an assistant worship leader in this church? Um, what do you mean? There were so many questions, that, or rather small statements, that she would make about, my sexuality. And, she seemed as someone who was genuinely interested in getting to understand who I am. However, um, it wasn't really the case, at her age, I would expect her, if she's interested in getting to know what a gay man is and what a gay man looks like, and um, what are the ins and outs of his life are, she would do her own research, and educate herself about, what is, all this about? Who are members of the LGBTQIA plus, and why are we feeling threatened by their existence and by their service? You know, in the church. And at the time, when all of this was happening, I was staying in Pretoria, and the church is in the north of Johannesburg. And, I would wake up, every Sunday, um, to drive. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. To drive from Pretoria to Johannesburg, to be on time for sound check, and to have those services. If you're serving on a Sunday, you would typically be serving in both services. So you'd be there for morning and evening, and serve for both services. And I was not paid for that service. Um, and the reason why I'm mentioning all this, I'm not complaining about, the level of service that I gave. I understand what serving means, and I understand, what serving entails. But I'm just giving you a picture of the fact that I had given myself my time and my resources, and for all of that to be thrown in your face when you are being kicked out like that, for me was quite difficult, to take in. It was quite difficult to accept. It was very painful, that process, happened the way it did. Um, and I didn't escalate the issue to the pastors because I was under the impression that this is probably something that they asked for, and this is something that they commissioned, and they were using that particular leader to basically execute, their mandate with their blessing. And for me, what was shocking about all of this is that the reason why I decided to go to this particular church in the north is that the then senior pastor had always been open about how this church is for everyone, and how that, perfect people were never allowed in this church. And yet here we are, sitting, having conversations, having to now negotiate my worth with people. There were so many sacrifices that I made, even spiritually, just to join this team, where I put certain aspects of my life on hold just to focus on, on leading worship, which obviously she will never know about because, to her, I was just someone that she had to remove, so that, people can stop talking, whoever was talking in the church at the time, concerning my sexuality and all of that. And it was a very, very difficult period. I prayed about it. I was angry, and I was just asking God to intervene in the situation. But eventually, I had peace, and I continued to go to the church. Um, and at some point in my anger, I even considered leaving the church, to say, I need to just find a church that is more welcoming, that is more accommodating than where I currently am at. And I prayed about it, and God just said no. Every time I prayed about it, God said, no, not yet. And so, and I'm sure like some of my friends were just like amazed as to how can you stay in a church after they put you through all of that, they put you through. And they don't understand, I think, my reasoning behind it. But like, even I'm also not, I personally right now, I don't understand, but I'm going on God's word because He said "Awindao," not yet, and I'm sticking with that. And I understand that God can definitely use me in other ways, in other aspects. My gifts will definitely find expression outside of the church. That I'm definitely confident of, and I know that for a fact that that will happen. But in terms of just being in the church for now, I've stayed, and yeah, that's what I'm going with because that's what God said. But if you are going through a similar thing, know that you're not alone. Know that there are many of us who are part of the LGBTQIA plus community that experience all of this isolation, all of this bullying in the church, all of this being overlooked for leadership positions, because for some reason, because you are part of the LGBTQIA plus, you cannot lead, you cannot pray for people, you cannot, your spiritual gifts cannot find expression in the church. And I don't understand what that is about. But we continue to pray, for our church leadership. We continue to pray that God will open their eyes to begin to see us the way He sees us. And until then, we will keep, using our gifts elsewhere, to continue to ensure that God takes the glory. At the end of the day, it's about God, it's not about man. And we will continue to do that until, the church gets it right. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I hope that you were somewhat encouraged through my story that I just shared with you. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so that the channel can grow. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.